Good day, everyone. I'm Janesha Celebre, taking Bachelor of Secondary Education major in English. I am here to discuss the topic that I was assigned, which is all about the sexual self. This lesson is designed to discuss facets of human sexuality, such as diversity of sexual behavior, understanding the human sexual response, identifying sexual orientations, and differentiating love from lust. Human sexuality is influenced by physical, psychological, spiritual, and cultural factors. As sexual beings, people are identified by gender, role, assignment, and perception. Perspective of human sexuality. What is sexual selfhood? Sexual selfhood is defined as how one thinks about himself or herself as a sexual individual. Human sexuality is a topic that, just like beauty, is culturally diverse. For the learner to be able to grasp in its totality, he should be aware of the varied ways in which it can be understood. 1. Historical. In ancient Greece, it is the male that assumes the dominant role. The male symbol, the penis, was viewed as a symbol of fertility, and how the male body was structured was greatly admired. This means that the women considered as objects to be possessed just like property. Women, on the other hand, were forbidden to own property and had no legal and political rights. Women were not allowed to even read and write. Her only function was to bear children. The Greek word for the woman is gene, means bearer of children. Under historical, there are four ages, era, that affects our minds in the perceptions of sexuality. The first one is the Middle Ages. It tells the strong influence of the church, particularly in matters of sexuality. The church decreed that all the sexual acts that do not lead to procreation were considered evil. Women were labeled as either a temptress like Eve or a woman of virtue like the Virgin Mary. The next one is in the Protestant Reformation of the 16th century. Martin Luther, John Calvin, and other Protestant leaders initiated a movement against the corruptions of the Roman Catholic Church. Protestantism believed that sexuality is a natural part of life and that priests should be able to marry and have families. Martin Luther and John Calvin asserted that the reason for sexual intimacy was to strengthen the physical and emotional bond between husband and wives and not just for procreation. The third one is the 17th and 18th century. The Puritans, a group of people who were discontented with the Church of England, rallied for religious, moral, and societal reformation. They had positive views on marital sex and did not condone sex outside of marriage. Premarital sex, therefore, was considered immoral. The last one is in the Victorian era. Homosexuality and prostitution were rampant and considered to be the threats to social order. In this period, the psychoanalytic theory of Sigmund Freud became popular. People in this era were not comfortable in discussing breast or buttocks. They used other terms instead, like white meat or dark meat. Sex for women was just a marital duty, and it was assumed that they were pure and asexual. Women were told that they should not enjoy having sex, and if they did, there was something wrong with them. Other beliefs that proliferated in this era were ejaculating more than once a month would greatly weaken a man. Masturbation leads to blindness, insanity, and death. Despite all these beliefs, prostitution still flourished in the city of London. Through the years and in the 20th century, interest in sexuality became more evident and accepted in society. The separation of church and state reduced the influence the church had over sexual mores. This is the period when pregnancy can be controlled by natural and artificial contraception. This period is also marked by increased incidence of sexually transmitted infection because of high-risk sexual activities. The rise of feminism allowed for changes in employment, home life, and sexual standards for women. Over time, cultural diversity and social norms offered varied views on what today may be considered as sexual normal. Biological. Knowing the structures and functions of the reproductive system is essential to the understanding of sexuality. In the nervous system, it is the brain that initiates and organizes sexual behavior. To the process of sexual reproduction, the next generations of human beings are created by the fusion of the egg cells and sperm cells. At the start of puberty changes that happens in the bodies of young males and females are both secondary and primary sexual changes. Secondary sexual changes are physical changes that distinguish the males from females. The table shows the secondary sex characteristics. On the other hand, the primary sexual changes that happen during the course of puberty prepare the male and female's body for procreation. These involve changes in the reproductive organs for this part to attain functional maturity. Female's ovaries begin producing egg cells, and the male's testicle begins producing live sperm cells. The table shows the primary sex characteristics. This is the end of my video presentation. Again, I am Janesha Celebre.